A recipe for a cake or a brownie that asks for 3 eggs, don't just try to replace that with 3 flax eggs or 3 spoons of applesauce or 3 insert replacement that you found online and just happened to have in your cupboards at home and thought that maybe this would work. It won't, okay? It just won't. If you want your vegan cakes to come out fluffy, moist, and completely indistinguishable from a regular cake, then you need to keep listening, because I'm about to tell you 3 huge mistakes that you might be making that are standing in your way of those delicious cakes. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Natalia Lima, owner and founder of Curious Cat Bakery, and this is the place where I share my vegan baking recipes, tips, and hacks. Now when it comes to making vegan cakes, I know a thing or two. I have baked hundreds of them for my customers, and if you allow me a couple of seconds to brag, people are always telling me how they taste exactly like the real deal. So how do I do it? And how can you do it? Because if you're watching this, I'm guessing you're either in one of 2 places. You're either in disaster land where everything you're making is coming out horrible. It's either a brick or it's falling apart, or you're just completely overwhelmed about this idea of baking a cake without eggs and you don't even know where to start. Does this sound familiar? Give this video a like if so. But either way, I want you to take a deep breath. I got you. Let's do this. So wherever you are, whether you're in disaster land or overwhelmed central, these are the 3 mistakes that you're probably making or about to make. So write them down. Let's not waste any more time on these, okay? So here's the first one. The number 1 rule of vegan baking is to not sub 1 for 1. Stop it. Just don't do it, okay? So here's the deal. I talked more about this in this video over here, and if you haven't watched it, you might want to watch that next. I'll put the link in the description below. But the summary of it is that if you have a recipe for a cake or a brownie that asks for 3 eggs, don't just try to replace that with 3 flax eggs or 3 spoons of applesauce or 3 insert replacement that you found online and just happened to have in your cupboards at home and thought that maybe this would work. It won't, okay? It just won't. You might end up with a cake at the end, but it's not going to be a good cake. Here's another way that I can explain this. Vegan baking is kind of like a game of Jenga. So you have all of these pieces that are stacked together and they form this structure at the end. Now, if you take one of those pieces out, you can't just insert any other piece in there and hope that the whole thing won't fall apart. It will. So what you need to do is try to find another piece that will fit exactly that place that you left in that recipe. So that may mean taking a few other things out, putting a few other things in. Either way, you need to rebuild that structure so it's stable. Otherwise, the whole thing will fall apart. Don't just do it and hope that it will work, because spoiler alert, it won't work, okay? In fact, let me save you some time over here. Next time you're in the kitchen and you're baking and you just go, I'll just try this, it'll work out, it'll be fine. Think of an imaginary narrator to your life. In fact, I'll volunteer for the job right now, just going, in fact, it was not fine. It won't be fine. It's never fine. The second mistake you might be making when making a cake without eggs is that you're using the same replacement for all of your bakes. Eggs serve a number of different purposes when it comes to baking. They help a cake rise, they add moisture, they bind all the ingredients together. So before you find a replacement, you need to take a moment and think, what purpose is the egg serving in this recipe? What is it doing here? Why is the egg part of it? Is it binding everything together? Is it helping with the structure? Is it adding moisture? Those are going to inform which replacement that you use. Because different replacements are going to have different purposes as well. So if you take a flax egg, for example, it has kind of that slimy texture that's similar to an egg. And so it's great for binding ingredients together. So in a loose batter like a waffle or pancake, it really works out super well because that's the purpose that the egg had there. It was just to hold it all together in a batter. Meanwhile, applesauce has a lot of moisture, so it's great for things like muffins because it really makes it so crumbly and just soft and really nice to bite into. Now, if you're making a sponge cake, you want the whole thing to be tall and fluffy. You don't want it to be stodgy and just like a brick, right? So in that case, you need something that will help give you a rise. My favorite is vinegar and baking soda. That reaction is going to serve the purpose that the egg did of giving that cake a rise. You can't just have one replacement and hope that it's going to work for all of the purposes you need it for. It's just not that easy. I wish it were, but it's not. Finally, the last and third mistake you might be making when baking without eggs is taking on extreme challenges. And I talked a lot about this in this video over here. Once again, I will put that link in the description below. But listen, I'm all up for challenging yourself. You should. It makes you a better person. It makes you better at whatever skill you're trying out. However, you need to walk before you run, okay? And so if you want to challenge yourself and take on really hard recipes, just know that it's gonna be an uphill battle, and that is not a good starting place, okay? So if you take a recipe like a brownie that has 6 eggs in it, guess what? Eggs are a pretty big part of that recipe. They serve a really big purpose in there. So if you're just gonna try to replace that, it's not gonna be super easy. It took me 10 years, 10 years, a whole decade of being vegan and trying a lot of different recipes for brownies. Dry, oily, hard, just so many awful ones that were really awful until I landed on my perfect brownies that taste just like the real deal and just happen to be gluten-free. That was a nice little surprise at the end there after trying all of the things. It took 10 years and I made magic, but you know what? It might take a long time for you to do something like that too. And that's okay, but just know that if you're taking extreme challenges right off the bat, if you just started baking without eggs and you're taking on a brownie recipe, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, and that's not fair to yourself. Not only you don't get to enjoy that beautiful baked good that you wanted to try, you also now have to clean up your kitchen, and it just takes a toll on your self-confidence. So don't try to just do all of these extreme challenges. Like eclairs are something that I love, but I still haven't figured out how to make them vegan and taste good. And I'm a professional baker. So you know what? If you can figure that out, that's great and you should try it. But if you're just starting with vegan baking now, maybe hold off for the eclairs and the brownies until you mastered a basic cake or a cookie. Start small, build your confidence, and then you're really gonna start learning the rules and how things work in vegan baking so you can take on bigger challenges down the road. And you're gonna be better at taking those challenges because you know what to expect of different replacements at different times and recipes. Start with something easier like a cake or a cookie, and then work your way up to testing out that brownie. And if you just want a vegan brownie right now, well, you can use my recipe. It's in my book, Vegan Baking 101. I'll put the link in the description below. And in fact, all of the photos you've seen in this video, the muffins, the waffles, the cookies, everything, all of those recipes are in that book. So you can check that out if you just want to get to baking with foolproof recipes and while eating, because that's the best part, honestly. That's why we all bake, right? I hope these tips are going to help you in your vegan baking. Let me know in the comments if you're having some trouble with eggless baking. If you're in disaster land or overwhelmed central, let me know in the comments. Tell me what kind of trouble you're having baking without eggs, and I'd be really happy to help you sort them out. And if you're just getting started with vegan baking, I know it can be a little overwhelming at first. So I put together a list of my top 10 tips for successful vegan baking. It's completely free. These are the tips that I wish somebody had given me when I was just getting started. So I'll put the link in the description below. You just follow that link, put in your email address, it gets delivered straight to your inbox. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys here next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Until then, you might want to watch this video where I share my top 5 tips for mastering vegan baking, or this one where I give my best tips for baking cookies without eggs and butter. I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you next time. Stay curious.